firmly restraining oneself, turning away from sound and other objects of sense, and casting aside attraction and aversion, dwelling in solitude, eating but little, controlling speech, body and mind, and ever engaged in meditation and concentration, and taking refuge in dispassion, and casting aside self-sense, force, arrogance, desire, anger, possession, egoless, and tranquil in mind, he becomes worthy of becoming one with Brahman. First of all, God said that one should be endowed with a pure intellect. This is a first necessity in order to attain the Supreme Soul and to reach the peak state of Gnan, wisdom. One should be endowed with a pure intellect. The problem with today's times is that people have an intellect, but they do not have a pure intellect. The intellect should be pure. The intellect should be clean. One should have a pure intellect. A pure intellect means an intellect is directed towards the Supreme Soul. Paramatma Vishayat Buddhi. The intellect that makes decisions that take us towards purity is a pure intellect. The people who do wrong things must have such a big intellect. Think about it that we see that the people who carry out big scams and create big difficulties, they did this without an intellect. Do the people who twist society around with their fingers do this without intellects? No, they have intellects, but they do not have pure intellects. You will see a second thing, that the lawyers of criminals know that their client has committed a crime. Despite this, they make such arguments, and so many criminals have become freed because they have made strong arguments and they have found gaps in the law. Does a lawyer who makes them free have a lesser intellect? Do the people who can twist the truth into falsity have lesser intellects? All of them have impure intellects. It is said here that one should have a pure intellect. If you look at the majority of people in society, then their intellects are manipulative. The attitude of causing loss to others to achieve one's selfish aim is a manipulative intellect. The intellect is always calculating. In the end, we have to leave everything here and go. All of this is a trade of the intellect. I'll show you a small experiment. When we put a clock around our wrists, then the clock tells us the time. Before the millennium, people had put clocks all over Chapati Beach in Mumbai, showing how much time there is left until the millennium, and how much time there is left until the next century. They said that this many months are left, this many days are left, this many hours are left, this many minutes are left, and this many seconds are left. When you went to Chopati Beach, then you see these electronic clocks that these people had placed, and every second the time kept reducing. And when it turned midnight at the time of the millennium, then there were zeros everywhere on the clocks, and the millennium began. Guruji thought a person should be given a small clock like this to have around their wrists, where at the time of their birth they are told that this is your lifespan. Now you have this many years, this many months, this many days, this many hours, this many minutes, and this many seconds left. The countdown will keep running, and this is possible. Do not think that is impossible. There are many sciences, for example, with the help of Jyoti Shastra, Vedic astrology, that you can tell how long a person will live for. If you do not have Shraddha, faith in Jyoti Shastra, Vedic astrology, then it does not matter, because with the help of science you can tell a person how long he has left to live. Scientists have reached that level where at the time of child's birth, if you take out some blood reports, tissues and DNA reports, then you can tell how much strength there will be in a body in normal circumstances through the DNA. Scientists cannot tell what will happen if the person gets an accidental or sudden death. They can only tell assuming that the person remains healthy in normal circumstances. They cannot tell what will happen if the person gets a disease or illness. Just like expiry dates are written on medicine bottles, scientists can also tell today that the long activity of the body is if the person does not catch any disease or illness and does not get involved in an accident. The doctors can tell this. Many children have difficulties from birth, and doctors can tell that you should look after the child until this age and should do this until the child reaches this age. And if you do not want to do this, then I will say that you're not going to live, on average for longer than 100 years. This is the maximum. As soon as the child gets born, then you should give it a gift of a clock with a 100-year countdown and say, here, this is how many years you've got left to live. Think about it that if a person keeps endlessly looking at this clock, then how long will he be able to keep a manipulative intellect for? When the intellect becomes impure and one makes the intellect impure, then by manipulating it, a person considers this is greatness because he has an illusion that I'm going to say what is going to happen to me. Look at the people who go to somebody's funeral. Nothing matters to them and nothing sticks onto them when someone has died. Many people enjoy going to funerals. They look in the newspapers and read the funeral section about where they have to go today. They just want to go and socialize there. They go there and say that the poor person was so nice. Oh, clever person, you are also going to go. Did you not know that? Are you prepared for it? Only then can one get a pure intellect. The poet Bhartrhari says that Aditya se gata gatai raha Sankshite jivanam vyapare bo karya bhava guruvi Kalo ni vignadyate drashva janma jara vipari maranam trasha no padyate pitva moha mai pramad madiram puna mata bhutan jagat. Every day the sun rises and every day the sun sets, and we have less life left. People think that they have lots of business to do, and the burden of work pressure is so much that one does not even know where all the time went. Every day people see the births, old ages, sufferings and deaths, yet despite seeing this people do not even get thirsty. Having drunk the intoxicant of delusion and negligence, the world has gone mad in its perception of things. While a person has dragged the intoxicant of delusion and negligence and is drunk, then he thinks, what is going to happen to me? Something is going to happen to him. One should have a purified intellect. Thinkers go so far in describing a purified intellect that they say that a purified intellect is such that an intellect that does not hold on to anything. The intellect should be like a mirror and not like a photographic plate. If you click a photo, then it will hold on to the image. It will never leave it. On the other hand, a mirror shows a reflection while it is in front of it, but if you move out of the way, then the reflection goes away. If the intellect is like this mirror, then it will become purified. If something is in front of you, then you should make a decision based on it, react to it, and do whatever you have to do. And when the person moves out of the way, then it's finished and the matter is over. There's one example for this. In the Ramayana war, Sri Ramchandraji fought the Ramayana war and killed Ravan in the end. Ravan died and there was nobody left to perform the cremation ceremony. His entire lineage had been killed. His sons were killed. There was only Vibhishan left in his family, and he had the right as the younger brother to perform the cremation ceremony when there was nobody else. Vibhishan was told to perform Ravan's cremation ceremony. Vibhishan refused to do this, and Vibhishan got very angry. He said, I will not perform Ravan's cremation ceremony. No matter if he was my older brother, I will not do it. He gave my Ishtadev, my personal god, Sri Ram, so much suffering, and he gave you so many difficulties. He took away Sitaji, who is the equivalent of my mother, and insulted her. Ravan was an extremely wicked person. I will not perform his cremation ceremony because he is not my brother. At that time, Sri Ramchandraji said, Vibhishan, while Ravan was living, we resented him because of his bad qualities, and he did according to what his intellect directed him to do, but now he has died. Now we cannot resent him. If you do not perform this cremation ceremony, then I will do it. This is called a pure intellect. Vibhishan's intellect had held on to this even after Ravan's death, and Sri Ramchandraji's intellect was focused on what was in front of him. While Ravan was in front of them, then they would fight him, but now that he had passed away, they let it go. Think about it, that we let go of this so naturally and so straightforwardly, whether we do this. If we can, then we can attain God, and this is necessary for our inner development. Then it is said in this verse that one should firmly restrain oneself. This means serving solitude and purity. In solitude, the mind becomes at peace. And when the mind becomes at peace, then one can experience the depth of the soul, and one can see the pearls residing inside the ocean. While we're amongst the people in the mind, constantly changes. Water is in one way transparent, and you can see whatever is floating underneath the sea. But in a state of running around, you cannot see anything lying underneath the sea. This is firstly because water is running, secondly because waves are constantly coming in the water, and thirdly because the water is heating. In the same way, if our mind is heating, then we cannot recognize the jewels lying in the depths of the soul. The next quality is that when one's antakaran, inner being, is at peace. When does the antakaran, inner being, become at peace? It is when one forms a habit of seeing the Supreme Soul in each and every place, or has developed the art of seeing the Supreme Soul wherever he looks. Such a person becomes worthy of becoming one with Brahman. One should be at peace, and if one reaches this state, then they become worthy of becoming one with Brahman. What is one's perspective towards life? There were two friends, and they were sitting at the top of the mountain. There was a temple in the valley below, and the evening arti began in the temple. It was such a peaceful atmosphere. Because the arti began in the temple, the singing began, and the whole town had gathered there because it was a big temple. People would blow the conches, ring the bells, and there would be a musical instrument playing. When the sound of the arti, when people worship with a light with wick soaked in ghee, vibrated above, then one friend said to the other, "Isn't it such a beautiful atmosphere?" The other said, "What are you talking about? I cannot hear anything amongst the noise." Look how much this difference is. One person found the sound and atmosphere beautiful, and the other said he could not hear anything amongst the noise. Now the person gets bliss from this beautiful sound of the arti, becomes at peace because he gets bliss from the world. You only get peace depending on the perspective in which you see the world, otherwise you'll not get it. Even if you see life as a challenge, then you'll get bliss in life. If obstacles come and problems come in life, then do not look at these problems as problems, but look at these problems as challenges. If you do so, then you'll get peace. This is because it is only because problems are there that they are going to get solved. No problem is ever going to come from there forever. It only comes to go. we can have to overcome so many obstacles and difficulties in the life of 50 years, 60 years, or 70 years. We should see them as challenges. 100 years ago, it so happened in America that a Japanese shoemaking company with a branch there decided that they wished to begin marketing to spread this brand throughout the whole world. There was an American salesman who was sent to Africa to see how the branch would open there and what happens, and to report back on how he found it. He went there in the jungles of Africa hundreds of years ago. There are tribal people there who were walking around bare feet, but he went to whatever little civilization there was. The American lived there for 4 to 6 months and saw everything. Then he wrote a letter to the headquarters office in America saying that there are very few British people here who wear shoes, but there is not much of a market for it this time. The local people there do not wear shoes. They don't even know what boots or shoes are. Therefore, there is no benefit in us opening a branch here. I am coming back. He went back. After he went back and provided reports, the company sent a Japanese salesman to go to Africa and open a branch there. The Japanese salesman went there. Within 1 month, he wrote a letter saying that it's very good here, nobody here wears shoes, and therefore we have the opportunity to capture the entire market. Send more staff and we'll make everybody here wear shoes. Now look how much the perspective changed. The American salesman thought that because nobody wears shoes, then nothing can happen, and the Japanese salesman thought that because nobody wears shoes, he'll particularly give them all shoes to wear. The circumstances were one, but the attitude of interpreting the circumstances were different in both of them, and that is why the lives were different. In the same way, many things come into our lives, but we can only get peace when you have the attitude of accepting the circumstances and finding a path out of it. Such a person's antakaran, inner being, becomes at peace. When one does this, then they become worthy of becoming one with Brahman. What happens after they become one with Brahman? God shows us the consequences in the next few verses. Brahma Bhutta